are the one. So the active participants are the one who contribute to the security of the blockchain and the liveness of the blockchain application. So the non-active users are the entities. We can say they will simply have the account, but they don't do anything. They don't contribute to the application. But the users or the nodes, whatever, whoever is the active, will have the exact copy of the blockchain. But there will be a delay in receiving those packets, because that's the network delay you already aware. When we are communicating, one will be having and another will be receiving it in the next time. That is, in T1 X will be having, and in T2 only Y will be getting that block. So before blockchain, we cannot say that there is no concept of distributedness. So we were having distributed computing and many other concepts using the distributed systems. But what happens, most of the cases we go for centralization because we need to have the security. And always we have the centralized authority who will be managing the network and ensuring the security of the network or an application. And what happens when there is a centralized authority, there is lot of chance of compromise. So we assume that the centralized authority, who is the owner of the organization, let's say, will definitely be genuine, but we cannot expect that. So the reason is the owner will think in his perspective, he will not think in the other's perspective. So that is what advantage he is going to take or she is going to take. So that is what their intention is. So we cannot say all the organization administrators will be like that. There may be some who will think about the others' advantage also. But in most of the cases, it will be mostly on their own benefit. So if it is centralized, so everything will be with them. So just assume a case that in case of examination center, all the faculties upload the marks in the portal, which is maintained by the system administrator. What is the guarantee that the administrator won't change whatever marks submitted by the faculty? Because faculty is not going to check whether it is modified or not. Only student knows what happened. But one more thing here is we are not going to disclose everyone's marks to all other students. So in that case, if the administrator and the student have any collusion, then what will happen is the administrator can make a change which will be not identified by any of the persons or the individuals involved in that particular system. So this is the problem with the centralized system. This is one of the examples, but there are so many cases. But we cannot completely say that centralized system is faulty. There are cases where we should have the centralized system, but when we go for decentralization, then we will distribute the work and also we can distribute the security. So the blockchain has come when it was introduced in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto. But we cannot say that it was from 2008. It started long back in one of the theses. I think in 1971 itself, somebody has given the hint related to the blockchain. Then 1991 it was taken up, and 1996 it was improved, but it was not coined as the word blockchain. So in 2008 it comes with the Bitcoin. So since the money is involved, it becomes very popular. And what the blockchain gives, see, blockchain is the technology. We are not talking about the application, which is Bitcoin built on top of the blockchain. So what blockchain gives is, it gives the integrity for the data and ensures the availability, since all the users are having the copy of it. And transparency, again, here it is that there is a trade-off, that there are some implementations gives the transparency, like Bitcoin or Ethereum, we can say, but there are some which does not give the transparency, like Zero Cash. And again, it's up to the application, whether they want to have the transparency or not. So next is the decentralization. Since it is distributed, so all are involved in ensuring the availability as well as ensuring the integrity of the data. So what happens, all these integrity, availability, transparency, and decentralization all together bring the trust to the application. So you think of Bitcoin. So in Bitcoin, what happens is we invite everybody to join, anybody to join, we say. So that means we are not inviting, that particular application invites anybody to join the network. And we don't know who are genuine person, who are the malicious intention person, but everyone is invited. So it is like we are not aware of the people. So let's say that person X is having the account and Y, Z are going to join, and person X is not aware of those X, Y, and Z. So for X, the Y and Zs are considered as the untrusted. So now the network is having the trusted people as well as the untrusted people. Finally, what the outcome is, the application is trusted. So that's where the blockchain attracts most of the people or the community to use blockchain into different applications other than the cryptocurrency. So there are various applications like supply chain, healthcare. We can use it in insurance, identity management, land record, and obviously the cryptocurrency. And these days, it is very famous that non-fungible tokens. I will be discussing about that. And there are so many other applications. But what problems we will be facing when we are going for using the blockchain technology? So the first thing is the storage. As you know that the blocks will be keep on growing. It may be having blocks, or it may be having the transactions, or it may be having the bundles, because every implementation says like Bitcoin and Ethereum says we use the block. But in case of IOTA, they say as bundle. But in Hashgraph, it is something different. So whatever it may be, but the growth is infinite. So it should never stop, because whenever we say that the growth of the block stops, the application is considered as stopped, or we can call it as finally dead, because all those transactions will be accepted once it is committed into the blockchain blocks. Otherwise, it is not considered as committed. So in that case, if the blocks are not mined or created, then the transactions cannot be committed into the blocks. So if it is not committed into the blocks, and then there are no transactions happening. So we say that the application is dead. So that's why the blocks should keep on growing. So that is the infinite growth. And so what happens is, if we are having infinite growth, then storage will be an issue. So if we talk about the cryptocurrency part, like it may be Bitcoin or Ethereum, there is no problem in thinking about the storage, because there are people, they are ready to invest for those, because they are going to get that much reward. But in case of other applications which are not going to have the cryptocurrency and there are no incentives, then how we can encourage the users to have huge infrastructure for storage? So that is not possible. So that is one of the problems. And second, the computational complexity. So you might have gone through the proof of work concept, that is the puzzle solving. So the puzzle solving takes huge time. So that means it needs huge computational power. And it is not possible to solve that puzzle with a normal desktop machine. I will show you why it is not possible. So if we have such kind of puzzle solving in the cryptocurrency, people are ready to do that because they will be getting the incentives. If we are going to apply into the e-healthcare or land record management system, who will be investing on that? Because they are not going to get any benefit out of it. So these two are the major problems. So one is the storage and another one is on the computational complexity. So you can see this graph, this we have generated. So it is like we are going to use the blockchain technology on a lightweight application. We consider that Internet of Things application. And we consider a machine is having a storage of 5 GB. That is the maximum it can allot for blockchain. So not more than that. If it is more than that, if the block storage is more than 5 GB, the storage requirement, if it is more than 5 GB, then that particular device cannot take part in the ongoing blockchain activities. So we have taken many, just a second, please. So we have taken many works which are already existing. So this is the traditional blockchain. So what happens is every node should store the block. The block will contain two parts. One is the header and the data part. So in the traditional blockchain, that is in case of Bitcoin, all active nodes should store both. That is the header as well as the data part. And the second one is Light Ethereum subprotocol. This was introduced in Ethereum. So this allows the clients who are considered as the light nodes to store only the headers. So no need to store the entire block. So in these two cases, let's consider that this analysis is based on the real-time blockchain data, that is considering Ethereum, that is weekly, how many blocks are mined and what is the size of its block. So considering that. So if you are going for the traditional blockchain, that is storing the entire block, including the header and the data part. So after the second week, the device will not be having, so this is the threshold. So that 5 GB, this black line. So if the node is going to store according to the traditional blockchain, after second week, it will not be in position to store the future blocks. So it will be like, it will get completely out of the blockchain system. And when we are going for the Light Ethereum subprotocol, which says only let's go for the header, but there are nodes which have more storage that will store, we can say both, that is header as well as the data part. So that we are not considering. Only we are considering the nodes which are going to store only the header. So that what happens in 234 weeks. After 234 weeks, there is no option to store, that is no storage available to store the future blocks. So similarly, there are other methods available, that is LitiChain, Erasure Code, Light Chain. So we have analyzed all these things and these we have proposed. And we are also considering, so in our case, if we see that how we store is, we say that we can delete the blocks. We assume the scenario where we don't need the very old block transactions. However, we want to ensure the security of the blockchain. So we divide the blocks into a set. And for that set, we will be computing the hash and the hash will be maintained. So that in case any user comes, any malicious user comes to replace the blockchain that is with their own, like bringing the fork as the main chain, so that can be prevented. So that's why we maintain the hash and also the set hash as well as the XOR hash of few blocks, not the all blocks of the hash. So that I may not discuss completely now because there is no time for that. And so and that whatever the set hash we are storing, one is infinite set hash. We will be storing that set hash for the entire life. And in the finite set hash, we will be deleting after a period of time. And next is the grouping. So we group the users and according to their agreement, each user will store one block. Instead of storing 10 blocks, if there are 10 users, each user will store only one block. But there are so many issues in that. Issues like, let's say if there are 10 users, they agreed upon having storing the blocks in the distributed manner, but there may be one or two intentionally leaving in between. So if they leave in between, we will be losing those blocks because nobody is storing those blocks except those two guys. So how we will overcome that issue? So that is also there. And next is, this is the Liti chain. So they use in the form of tree. So they, for every node, there will be a tree maintained. And here also they delete some of the blocks which are not considered as not required. So those will be deleted. But here what happens, they give the expiry time. For every block, there will be an expiry time. After that, it will be removed from the chain. And next is the erasure code. This is something like fragmenting the blocks and storing only part of it. But here what happens, it's very computationally costly. So similar, this light chain is almost similar to the grouping, but again, here also this is very computationally heavy. And this one, what we say is, it is like they are fixing the expiry time. So who will fix the expiry time? So in their case, the miner has to fix the expiry time. So the problem is, who is the miner to fix the expiry time for a block? So that issue this Liti chain faces. And we don't have such kind of problem. The freedom is completely given to the respective device. According to its storage, it can delete the blocks or it can keep the blocks. And we are considering there are blocks which are old that may not be required in some of the cases, in most of the cases. So it is not required, the respective device is not required to depend on any other devices until unless it has very less storage, and in that less storage, it is unable to store all the non-expired blocks. So if we see that in our case, that is, if we go for grouping in 9890 weeks, the device will not be having, after 9890 weeks, it is unable to store the blocks. And in case of Liti chain, it goes up to 11300 weeks, but I said the problem already. But in case of ours, which is the finite set hash, it is infinite. Okay, there is no like fixed time. It is infinite. It can store any number of blocks and it can go for any number of years to store the blockchain. So there are problems still. I'm not saying that ours is the best and we could contain all the issues related to the storage, but still there are problems. You can concentrate on this. And next is the heaviness with the proof of work. As I already said, we have to solve a puzzle. And I told that with the normal desktop machine, it is not possible to solve the puzzle, whatever given in Bitcoin or Ethereum. So what the puzzle is, they have the hash function. And in the hash function, the input will be given. The input is the block static data, and we say the other part is the dynamic data. And because the hash function is the deterministic hash function, whatever number of times we give the input, the output will remain same. So the input will always be the block, that is attributes in the block. If you are going to give the same attributes again and again, then it will be producing the same output. We will never produce solve the puzzle. So we need one more attribute, which will be the dynamic. So that's where they go for the nonce. And they keep on changing the nonce and compute the hash and see that whether it will be less than the threshold or not. So it is like there will be a range given. So the range, in the sense, we can say the space for a hash function. Let's say if we are going for SHA-256, the possible input output for that SHA-256 is from 0 to 2 power 256 minus 1. So definitely the output of the hash function will lie on this space only. It will not exceed this space. So what the proof of work does is, it puts the cutoff. Let's say if the entire space is given and we are asked to find an input which will produce the output that will lie on that entire space. So in constant time, it is possible, because whatever input we are going to take, that is going to produce the output in that range. So it will not be away from that. But what they do is, in the puzzle solving, they reduce that space. So let's say if the space is this is the entire space, but they say you find an input which will produce the output in this range. So this is what the puzzle is. So because the algorithm is deterministic, but it is random. So nobody can predict that this will be the output for this input until unless we get the output from the hash function. So we have only option as the brute force. So what we have to do is we have to take the input and one by one and then give it to the hash function and see whether it belongs to this or not, because it may lie on this also. That will not be accepted. Whenever the output lies in this region, then only that input will be accepted. So what I have done is I wrote a simple script in the Go language to see how much my system is capable of to solve. The same SHA-256 I have used. And the input what I have given is, I have given like this something. So this is the concatenation. So it goes with B, C, D like that. After that A, B, because we cannot expect it will give the output with the first attempt itself. So then BA, it was going like that, and I was running with 4 cores. So I divided this dynamic input accordingly to the 4 different cores, and I was trying to solve the puzzle. So at first I put the cutoff as 2 power 250. Let's say this place I put the cutoff. So that means find the input which will produce the output in this range. So it was running for 0.328 seconds. So that is 4 cores are running. The time of 4 cores are taken. And in the attempt of 1033, I could solve the puzzle. So that means the machine could solve the puzzle. So when I put the cutoff as 2 power 240, that means further I reduced. So then it takes this much time. After these many attempts, I could get the output, which is in this range. So then it is 2 power 230. That is further I was reducing, and it takes these many attempts. And further I reduce, it takes approximately 2 power 32 attempts. So when I come to 2 power 210, let's say this place, I am unable to solve the puzzle. Even my system was running for more than a day. And you know, in case of Bitcoin, they put the cutoff like this, that is a target, and they want that puzzle should be solved in 15 minutes. And you know, in case of Ethereum, it should be in 15 seconds. So maybe they will not keep this. They may keep this. And you see, I was taking 57 seconds. I will never solve the puzzle. Okay, so this is not like whether I will solve the Bitcoin puzzle or not. When we are going to apply this proof of work into the application where there is no incentive or where we don't have the devices to compute or perform these much computations, then what will happen? So we cannot use the blockchain technology for those applications. So considering all these things, the variants were introduced. When the blockchain technology was introduced in 2008, it was nothing like anything public or permissionless or permission. It was blockchain technology, but the researchers realize the need of it and they come with the variants. That's where the permissioned blockchain comes. So in case of public or permissionless, anybody is allowed to enter. But in case of permission, again, there will be an authority who will allow people to take part in the blockchain. So again, it has two, that is the public and private permissioned blockchain. So in case of public permissioned blockchain, anybody is allowed to do the read operation, but they are not allowed to perform any write operation. In case of private permission, both read as well as write should be done only by the users who are authorized already to take part in the net. So then what happens? So now what's the difference between these two with respect to the previous slides, that is the problem of storage and computational heaviness. So here what happens? They bring the other way of getting the consensus. So that comes with this Byzantine fault tolerance. So they use the Byzantine fault tolerance where we don't need to solve the puzzle. Only thing is we need the communication between the participants to take their consensus to reach the final goal. So that's what to be done. But the issue here is, in this case, the scalability is an issue. In case of proof of work, scalability is not an issue. Anybody can join because the miner who is going to solve the puzzle, they are not dependent on others. So he or she will solve the puzzle and throw it to the neighbors. But in case of Byzantine fault tolerance, it depends on the neighbors. So when the neighbors are increasing, that is the number of nodes in the network is increasing, then what happens is the communication will be more. So when the communication increases, there will be a delay. So that's what the problem. So we have the scalability issue, but the computational heaviness is completely avoided in the permissioned blockchain. So it is like the one problem, that is the computational heaviness problem, is overcome now. And the next question is, who can stop blockchain application? Let's say now we have Bitcoin. Can anybody stop Bitcoin now? So the answer is, we can say 99.9% no, it's not possible to stop. Let's say if one can, because it's global and we don't know who is part of it. But recently I have seen an article, I hope you all from Tamil Nadu, I have seen in Dinamalar only, that around 10 millions of Indians are having the account in cryptocurrency. So I don't know how much true it is. So we don't know who are having the accounts. And let's say if government X bans the Bitcoin, is it possible to stop the Bitcoin application? It's not possible because other country users will be using it. Even if all the countries are going to ban the Bitcoin, even then also the underground people may be using it. The case is, the question here is how they will exchange the money, that is the coin, with the equivalent INR or AUD or USD or Euro. That is of something different, which is like, again, they will find out a way to exchange that. So it's not so easy to stop such kind of application. So it's, when we are going for permissionless, it is global and it is very tough to stop. But when we have the permission to blockchain application, yes, we can say there will be an authority. So that authority is having the control again in the sense that who can join the network. So maybe with their help, it is possible to stop an application. So the underlying technology to connect. So it's like for the Bitcoin or Ethereum, the underlying technology is blockchain. For the blockchain technology and underlying technology, if we see, it involves the cryptography, it involves the distributed system, it involves the network, it involves the data structure. And blockchain, if we see, it is one of the applications for the network, like what we have World Wide Web or file transfer, like that. Blockchain is also one of the applications for the network. So what I want to emphasize on this particular slide is, so if we are going through the blockchain technology, it is not simply like writing the smart contract and deploying it and seeing the output. That is not sufficient. So we have to go through the underlying technology, how it works, how the keys are generated, how the addresses are generated. Those are very much required. So then only when you are to do some research, those things are very much useful. Not only for the research, for the job also it is very much required. So even if you want to, you have to set up a blockchain application for your organization. How will you set up? You should know the entire background of that. That is the underlying technology of the blockchain. Then only it is possible to, let us say, create that application. Maybe we can climb that, we can download the framework, on top of it we can build. But if there is any problem occurs, how we are going to solve it? If we don't know the underlying technology, we cannot solve those problems. So the countrywide implementation of the blockchain, we can say Estonia. So they have this keyless signature infrastructure. So this does not mean that there is no key used. Key is used. But why they call it as the keyless signature? Actually, to verify those things, it is not required to use the key. So what they do is they compute the hash and they form a tree like a data structure. And the route will be, I hope you might have gone through already Merkle tree in the Bitcoin or Ethereum. That is the way that is used in storing the transactions. So the root of the Merkle tree, if we see, that gets printed in the newspaper. So in the daily newspaper. So you can see that if there is any modification, any citizen in the country can claim that there is a modification. So this will give very good governance. But the problem is, we cannot say that the government is always doing wrong. Sometimes it will be very genuine and we may need to go for backdated. So that is not possible when we are going for blockchain technology, because you are well aware. And if you want to delete some document or update, so that is not at all possible. So this is like some complexity involved when we are going to implement in the governance. So the other application which we worked is on healthcare. So we concentrated on two types of attackers, that is the threat agents. One is the insider and outsider. Since we have the blockchain technology and it gives the decentralization, so we can ensure the availability of the data as well as the integrity of the data. So that's why we thought we can apply the blockchain technology to the e-healthcare. So we consider threat agents in our model. So the agent may be the insider as well as the outsider. The insiders are more dangerous because outsider has to cross lot many walls and get into the system. But in case of insiders, they already having the privileges to access the system. So if they are going to misbehave, then what is going to happen to the system? So there are various threats in the system. Like if we have the record, there is a possibility somebody may modify the record and they may access the record who are unauthorized. They may create the unauthorized record for a patient. And the ransomware, because if you are keeping it in one place, there is a possibility that ransomware may lock the data. And as per my readings, I found there were 2 deaths reported because of the ransomware. And sometimes like the malicious hospital administrator also, they put some wrong data, or they try to put the data to create the conflict in the system. So how these can be solved? By having the blockchain technology into that place. So we considered that, let's say the records are stored in the cloud and we keep the metadata into the blockchain, so that if any modification on the data in the cloud, so that can be identified. But if you see, it is like 2 different networks. One is blockchain and another one is the cloud. So data is there in the cloud and metadata is available in the blockchain technology. There is a possibility somebody will try to make a conflict between the 2 storages, that is the cloud and the blockchain. So in that case, what happens, even though we make sure of integrity, availability, there will be a question on the availability, because how we will ensure the integrity after fetching the data, we will compute the hash and map with the metadata whether it is remains same or not. If it remains same, then we say that the integrity of the data is maintained, otherwise it is not. But there may be cases we will not be in position to verify the integrity. So there what happens, whatever method you are applying, that is of no use. So how that can be overcome? So these are like, if we take the blockchain technology and apply into an application, that cannot be the research. Because in the very beginning, you can say when I started to work on blockchain technology, that was in 2016. I was not able to find the document or the material for the blockchain technology, but now the cases are different. Okay, there are so many papers you can see, or real-time implementations you can see where the blockchain is already applied. So if you are taking the blockchain technology and applying into the e-healthcare, will not be in research. You have to find out, you have to go beyond applying the blockchain technology, because that is like applying is simply doing a project work. So we have to go beyond and find out what are the problems possible. So like what is happening is, every time we visit the hospital and we will be having different IDs. Let's say if I go to hospital now and hospital may create some ID and give it to me. After 3 years, I will go and I will register as new user. So now you can see my record is now segregated. It is there in 2 places. So how these can be overcome? So like this, we can add some more problems and we can try to solve. And next is the decentralized public key infrastructure. So usually what we do is we share the public key between one another, but we want to make sure that the key is from so and so person. So that's why we go for the centralized authority. So instead of that, we can use the blockchain. So whoever is interested, they can post their public key into the blockchain, and the respective receiver or the sender, they can take it and use it. Again, this is like simply applying the PKI, simply applying the blockchain technology into the PKI. So, but we have to see what additional things can be done on this. And very important thing, as I was discussing about the computational latency as well as the storage also, when even you reduce the computational latency by having this consensus protocol like Byzantine fault tolerance, but we have to make sure one thing, when we are going to apply the blockchain technology, definitely that is going to give additional overhead. And it is very much required for us as a researcher to justify how that is going to be managed. Because if I say that I will be using the blockchain technology for my application, but I need the data center for that, so nobody will be accepting. So that's why we need to give the justification, like if we apply the blockchain technology, definitely it is going to take the overhead, but those are not going to burden the devices. So what we have done is we try to implement it on the IoT devices. We want to have this blockchain technology for the smart transportation system. So what we have done is we have considered a small setup, so that contains only one machine and the Raspberry Pi device, and we worked on the core Ethereum implementation, not on the smart contract, on one part, and another part we worked on the smart contract. So that is like we modified the Ethereum implementation according to our requirement, and we performed our experiment. And in another case, we were using the smart contract. Whatever Ethereum implementation is there, on top of it, we wrote the smart contract and we build our application. So what we took from our experiment is, so there are 2 operations usually we perform with the blockchain technology. One is the write operation and another one is the read operation. So write operation is in the form of transactions we put, and another one is read operation. We fetch data from the blockchain. So if you see this particular one is of, this is of the result from the desktop machine, and this one is from the Ethereum, Raspberry Pi device to perform whatever action we are asking to perform. So if you see in this case, so this takes more than 20 milliseconds, but it is like it is not constant of 20 seconds. It varies when the number of nodes are changing. But if you see, so these are of only the fetch, that is the read operation. So definitely there will be a difference between the read and write operation, because write operation includes the validation of the signature and all. So that's why it takes more time, and here it takes less time. So the same when we are doing with the Raspberry Pi, you can see that here it is in from 15 to 25, but in case of this, it is from 100 to 150 milliseconds. And the fetch operation, if we see, it is almost 20, we can say, or at least 15, but here everything comes within 5 milliseconds. But even we say that it is more than this when compared to these two things. The Raspberry Pi 1 takes more time than the desktop machine, but 100 milliseconds, we can say that it is manageable in the application. So like that, we have to give the justification when we are applying the blockchain technology in any of the applications. And this is the comparison of using the smart contract and without using smart contract, that is working on the core Ethereum. That is like they call it as the world state. So if we are, because the smart contract will be deployed into the world state only. So one is deploying the smart contract on the world state in Ethereum, and another one is directly working on the world state. We are not going for the smart contract. Again, we have considered this. So if we see here that if you are directly working with that world state, it takes less time when compared to working on the smart contract. So this is for the transactions and this is for the data access. Because in case of the smart contract, we can say that there are 2 trees. Okay, we have to traverse those trees. But in case of the core implementation, that is the world state base, so there we will be having only 1 tree. So the traversal is required on that tree. So the overall trend of blockchain technology, if we see, so this is like how much access they have done in the Google, that is on the blockchain. They were searching about the blockchain on Google. You can see how it is spread. So there are some places you can see like this, it is not like they have searched. So they maybe used some other search engines. So in India, we can see that there are states where the search was too high when compared to some states. So it is like it covers entirely. It is not that only few are working. So in blockchain, there are massive number of people are working on the blockchain technology. So when those many are working, definitely the job opportunity will be there. So this is like, you can see that blockchain digital transformation, it's not like it's only for the cryptocurrency, it goes beyond. There are so many areas, and they say it can be used in all the areas, including the cloud. So the cloud is like the single administrator, how we can implement the blockchain technology into it. So what they are saying is we can go for multi-cloud. And there are papers I have seen, it says that like if we consider Amazon will be having their cloud deployed in various locations of the globe. So then again, we are ensuring the decentralization and we give the blockchain as a service. So there are some saying we go for the multi-cloud. So we are also considering the multi-cloud, and we are right now working on one of the problems. Again, it is not like we are simply going to deploy the blockchain technology on the cloud. We want to provide the granular level of integrity for the data, so which is very much required. So when we are going for the blockchain technology, the first one is especially for the cryptocurrency, there is always the trade-off, that is the privacy with criminal activity, because we always say the blockchain applications like Bitcoin and Ethereum, those are pseudo-anonymous. So they want to ensure the privacy of the users. But this leads to the criminal activity also. And if we want to go for permissionless application, then we will fall into the computation. And if we want to perform very fast, then it will be costly also. But considering all these things, we should not think that we could completely avoid using the blockchain technology. It is not the case. We have to see how this can be improved. So that's what we have to do in our research. So this diagram I always show in any of the blockchain presentations. So you can see that there are different types of blockchain. One is permissionless, public permission and private permission. This we have already seen. And another one is don't use the blockchain. So what happens is when you are having an application and trying to apply blockchain technology into it, we have to make sure whether the blockchain is required for that application or not. So if it is required, then we can go for it. Otherwise, we should not think of it. So how we can decide? So first question, so there are various questions we take. So at the end, we can finalize whether we will go for blockchain or not. If blockchain, and then what type of blockchain. So the first question is, do you need to store state? Okay, so the activity will be changing accordingly. The state of the machine, we can say, will change. So if you want to store those state, that is the changes, if you want to store, then you think of blockchain, otherwise don't go. So next question is, are there multiple writers? If you consider there are only one writers, then one writer, there is no need of blockchain. Otherwise, take the next question. If you are going to use the online trusted third party, that is for each and every activity, the TTP will be involved. If it is so, then don't go for blockchain. Otherwise, take the next question. If that is the question is, are all writers known? If you are not knowing the writers, then go for the permissionless blockchain. So this is like the Bitcoin, because we don't know the users. So in that case, we can go for permissionless blockchain. Otherwise, go to the next question. That is, are all writers trusted? If all of them trusted, then we can say don't use blockchain. Again, so there is a little conflict here. So we can say that we trust them, but there is no guarantee that they will be always trusted and behave genuinely for the entire lifetime of the application, because they may also be compromised. So there is always possibility of the insider attack. So if you don't trust the writers, then the next question is, so now we are going to have the blockchain. If public verifiability, that is a read and write operation. So if we want public verifiability, then go for the public permissioned blockchain. Otherwise, go for the private permissioned blockchain. So based on this, so like this, there are other flow diagrams also available. You can look into it and decide whether we can have blockchain applied onto that application or not. So the research directions, like one thing is we have to work on the consensus protocol. There are so many protocols available, but still, if you go through, you will find one or other problems. And next is the storage issue, as I already told. And there are many applications where you can look into it. And you can see that there are conferences, which is especially for the blockchain technology, like blockchain and cryptocurrency and blockchain only on the name blockchain. So like that, there are 3-4 conferences specifically for the blockchain technology, the top conferences. Otherwise, also, if you see these days, any of the security conferences, they always include one of the topics as the blockchain technology. So that much requirement has come for the blockchain technology. And there are various attacks happening on the Bitcoin or Ethereum or the blockchain applications. Like in case of Bitcoin, now they are going for, it is not now, they already have that real-time implementation, that is the Lightning Network. Because in Bitcoin, if we have to perform a transaction, that will be taking time, because we have to confirm whether that will be part of the main chain or not for a period of time. So what we do is, instead of going for that, we can have a Lightning Network where there will be an agreement between the two parties. So they will do the exchange without any delay and any mining. Once that agreement is over, all the transactions are put into the Bitcoin, there it will get mined. But there are many vulnerabilities present in this. And now people are working on the redactable blockchain. So it's like, as we are saying, once we put the data into the blockchain, it's not possible to modify. But there are researchers, they are claiming, let's say if some fraudulent message is put into the blockchain, and if we are unable to correct it, then what is going to happen? So then we can go for redactable blockchain. So that means we can replace the blocks which is there in the chain. However, the blockchain security will be maintained. So like this, there are so many research problems involved. Even we applied blockchain technology into the smart metering infrastructure to identify and control the insider attacks, and we expanded the operations of the activities of the smart meter. So it is based on the reputation. The nodes in the smart meter will give opinion about other smart meters. Accordingly, the smart meters can trust other smart meters. So we store all these opinion results into the blockchain so that nobody can modify. But again, just applying is not sufficient. So we have to do other things. We don't want more than one opinion for any of the users. How we can control that? Otherwise, there is a possibility of bad mouthing and ballot stuffing attack. So next I hope many of you must be working on the machine learning techniques. So there is a concept of federated learning. So in machine learning, what happens is we have to train the machine. So for that, we need the data set. So the data set comes from various places, and there is a possibility that leakage of privacy since the data is getting shared. So the Google has come up with an idea. Let's go for the federated machine learning. So what they do is let the data won't get shared. Let the people have their own data and give the training, and the trained messages will be given to the centralized authority where they can perform the consolidator or the aggregated feature selection, and then that can be used by all other nodes in that particular network. So that's what their intention is. They say that there is no possibility of privacy leakage. But even then, there are other papers stating that even only they are sharing the data, which is the already trained information they are sharing. From that also, there is a possibility of leaking some information. So now here also we can use the blockchain technology. So it is like, let's say that each and every node will be training their machine with their own data set. After that, they share it through the blockchain transactions, and there will be a miner who can do the aggregation. So again, if you see in this, it is not like depend on any centralized party. If there are 4 parties, they share, and any one of among the 4 can do the mining and do the aggregation. So for that also we can use the blockchain technology. And as I was telling about the non-fungible tokens, so this is trending very recently, maybe when the COVID starts. So what happens is, let's say that I have the document or some drawings, some movies, whatever I am having, which is of my own. So what I will do is, I will create the token, and that will be placed in the blockchain. So it is like, that is the unique token, which is for that particular drawing or whatever it may be. And whoever want to buy that, they can buy it, because I am the only owner for that, because the metadata of that particular goods, we can say, is there in the blockchain, and nobody can modify. So for example, if I am the story writer, I will write and I will compute the metadata, and that is the non-fungible token, and that will be placed in the blockchain. And if I want to sell it, I will transfer the ownership of that NFT to the other person, and I will be getting the equivalent money for that. But there are problems here, like what will happen if somebody like takes the copy of it by doing small modification and put there. So now both will be claiming for little modified content. So such kind of problems are still unsolvable. So what is the fungibility and non-fungibility here is, in case of fungibility, like if we have something, the transfer is possible. Like if I give 50 rupees, and in case of if I give 50 rupees to someone, they have to return me that 50 rupees. Instead of returning as 50 rupees, they can give me as 30 as well as 20 also. So, but finally it should be 50 rupees I should receive. But in case of non-fungibility, if I give something, you have to give the same thing to me. It is not possible to give the alternate for that. So which is not allowed. So that is what the non-fungibility in the transactions. So the tokens, whatever we are going to have, those are the non-fungible tokens. The advantage of having this with the blockchain technology, so this has implemented in the Ethereum blockchain technology or Ethereum cryptocurrency. So it will remove the intermediaries. So like there is no need of brokers, and we can have simplified transactions and create new market for this. But again, there are so many problems involved. So those has to be addressed. And regarding the job opportunity, so maybe this will not be clearly visible to you. So this is of this Naukri.com. It says that 94107 job vacancies related to blockchain technology. So, and again, I'm not saying that you have to focus only on the blockchain technology. You will be having your background on any of these disciplines, but you can have the blockchain technology knowledge also, so that you can get some good jobs in the market. And again, I don't say that for others there is no job opportunity. For everything there is a job opportunity. Blockchain also has. It should not be like blockchain is not having the future. Blockchain is definitely having the good future. So that's it. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I can take it.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, whether miner will become an attacker?
So miner can become, yes, definitely they are, we call them as like selfish miners.
Okay, so how to identify?
Just a second, how much they will be successful, that is like question mark.
Okay, sir.
Because they should have sufficient infrastructure to compete the rest of the users in the blockchain.
Okay, sir. Is that possible to identify the fake miners?
Fake miner, see, if they successfully post their blocks and if it is accepted by the majority, then it is not possible. And definitely in one way we can identify, if they mine the block in incorrect manner, they will be identified immediately. But if they mine the block which is perfectly mined and which may also be accepted by majority of the users, but they will be doing it intentionally by dropping one or two transactions. So in that case, it is not possible to identify.
Is there any authentication method for to be a miner, sir? Is there anything is followed like that?
No, there are no authentication. Actually, here all the authentications are based on what the private and public key we generate once we join. But okay, what they say is, instead of miner, we can say you should have the neighbors. So those neighbors, what Ethereum says is, you always have some of the neighbors as your the bootstrap nodes, that is the developers of the Ethereum, so that you will be completely or always connected with the network. Somebody cannot isolate you. And next, in case of miner, we know that anybody can be the miner. Even if you identify someone as some miner who is performing badly, the same miner will come with some other ID and will perform the task, the same whatever he has done. So that in that case, it is not possible to identify, because here authentication is only to map that particular address. So that is that account address we are having. We can ensure that that account address holder is doing that activity and he is the owner. So that's what we can do.
Okay, sir. Can you share about zero knowledge protocol, that is zero knowledge proof?
See, as I was telling, right, in case of Zcash, they use the Snark protocol, which is on the zero knowledge based. Okay, they say that succinct, non-interactive zero knowledge protocol they use. Okay, so again, it is like an insider. Let's say they have all the privileges, but they misbehave. So it is complex to identify them.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
But it is not that there is no solution. You may also work on it and try to find out that.
Zero knowledge proof, sir.
No. Zero knowledge. Using zero knowledge. I was talking about that identifying the malicious miners.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who always try to create the fork.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those and all you can do the analysis by taking the entire Bitcoin data, that is the blockchain information or Ethereum blockchain information. You can try analyze that.
Okay, sir. That's what, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Participants, if you have any doubt, please ask by unmute your mic, or you can chat. Chat box is enabled now.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, what could be the challenges faced when integrating an IoT with the blockchain, sir? Because papers say that the IoT devices are very fragile and very, very delicate to handle. So, when we are trying to interface both of them, so what are the key points that we have to really be careful about, and how far is this?
So if I understand that, what things need to be considered when we are going to apply the blockchain technology into IoT, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So the main thing, as you have mentioned, the infrastructure of IoT device, that is the configurations. If we see, it is like we will be having heterogeneous devices, and we should not consider the case, since it is heterogeneous, there are nodes which are having more computational power. So we apply the blockchain technology as per what we could do. That should not be the case. Why it is? Then those nodes will dominate. So it will be like application will be on the control of them. So we have to consider that the majority of the devices will participate in the blockchain application. Accordingly, you have to apply the implementations. Like in case of going for proof of work, then we know that it is not possible. So then you can plan of using the Hyperledger. So if you are going for Hyperledger, we have the problem of the scalability. So again, you think of other protocol which uses the proof of authentication. So again, that is like the private blockchain only, or permissioned blockchain. So you have to consider those cases and apply into that particular application. But in addition to that, we have to see what problem the blockchain is going to solve, and what are the problems possible also by applying the blockchain technology. Other than the overheads, there may be other problems, like we are going to put the data in the blockchain storage, and that we trust those data and we are going to use those data. But what will happen if somebody feeds wrong data into it? So that also should be considered.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, one more point is like we have three major things. Like one, when I'm talking about IoT, like integration, consensus algorithms, and hash function.
So can you repeat? Can you repeat? I'm unable to. The
so
three you are saying, right?
Yeah, sir. Integrating the device with the blockchain. And the next thing is like we are considering the consensus algorithm, and next is a hash algorithm.
No, second one, what you said, integrating
the device with the blockchain technology, sir, with that architecture.
Okay.
So like major contribution or major thing what we need to take care, like because hash algorithms are something which are already
no. So
like,
that is not your contribution. You will not be going for that. Otherwise, that itself the major contribution if you are developing your own hashing algorithms. See, let me tell you, in my paper, what happens is, what we have done is, we have used the blockchain technology. We allow user to vote. that whether you trust a node or not. So when they are going to give the vote, there are problems like we have considered the permissionless network. Anybody can join. So that means we don't know any user beforehand. So what will happen? There is a possibility of cyber attack. So that is like, let's say, if there are users or a single user, he comes and show that he is or she is of 10 users with the same physical infrastructure of single user. He can expose as 10 users or n users or infinite number of users. So how we are going to handle them? So what will be the impact of these people is, since we are going for vote based, so in the voting, these people will give the majority of the vote to make someone as genuine if they are not genuine also. So it is like a ballot stuffing attack. And another one is bad mouthing. If somebody may be genuine, but these people will try to, this guy with multiple identity will try to give a wrong vote for that genuine person to make him as the wrong person. So this is one. And second, let's say based on the vote, there may be positive vote or the negative vote. So when somebody is giving the negative vote, how we are going to validate that negativity? Otherwise, what will happen? Just like that, I will say that he is not good. So if I say someone is not good, he is going to lose a lot, but that should be validated. So how we can validate? So this is the other problem. So like that, we have to think there are many problems possible if we go in deep. So right now we are working in the cloud. If we see that if we are going to use blockchain into the cloud, that is not going to give any use. But we have to see how the integrity can be achieved. So again, achieving integrity is very simple. You compute the hash and keep that in the blockchain and you verify whenever you want. So that we have done in e-healthcare, but in addition to that, we have done something else also. But now in the same case, what we are considering is we will be storing only one hash value for that particular table, let's say. But when I am going to access a single cell of the table or single row of the table, I could validate my data is accurate or not. So how that can be done? So this is like, it will be giving additional contribution to your research. So like this, you can think.
Okay, sir. So major, I mean, the thing what we have to take care is about the consensus algorithm, like the verifying whether the nodes are trusted.
So there are so many consensus algorithms, but you have to keep two things in mind. One is like it should be having the scalability, and another one is the time complexity.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Any questions, participants, please?
Sir, can you able to hear me?
I mean, your is not clear, ma'am. Audio is not clear.
Sir, now?
No, it's very low, ma'am. Janani, ma'am.
Sir, now you can able to hear me?
Ma'am, it is not audible. Can you chart your question in the chat box so that sir can answer? Any questions?
Zcash, that is not SNAR, succinct, SUCCINCT. That is something lightweight. Zcash or zero cash.
Sir,
So the
another-
performance of the application, what you can do is, so as what I have done in my experiment, even for the smart contract also, what we do is, one we refer based on the time complexity, and another one is the attribute overhead, that is the communication overhead. So in the communication overhead, we know what are the parameters we are going to consider, and what is the size of each parameter. So based on that, we can we can measure those. And second, in case of the computational, that is the time complexity, what we do is, in the smart contract, what we have done is, in the beginning as well as at the end, we have written the time, that the code or the script for the time, and we identify how much time it takes to process that. So this is what we have done in case of smart contract. But in case of Ethereum, that the core implementation, there are functions already available which is written, so that you can apply, that automatically gives how much time it takes. So from that only we have measured. That is, when I put a transaction, how much time it takes. Actually, I could not show the demo. That's why it's not possible to explain that in detail. So maybe if you may contact me, I will let you know how to measure that. So someone has written, share the paper. If possible, Pravina, you may send me the email. Okay, so I can reply to that. So someone is saying, I'm focusing on IoT. What kind of input data can we, what kind of input data can we give to blockchain? So you have to make sure, first you have to identify what problem you are going to solve by applying the blockchain technology into the IoT application. Because you will be having some application, on that application, maybe some attacks possible, because you have to first list those attacks, that is the threat model, and then you will be applying the blockchain technology for that. But then you have to analyze that, again, whatever the threats you have given, that can be, you have to prove that that can be solved using the blockchain technology. So again, what type of attacks, so that depends on the application, on what perspective you are going to use. As I said already, that in case of ours, we are going for the voting system. We want to get the what is it, the authenticity of the user. So that's why we are going for the reputation. So in that case, the attacks, possible attacks are like I was telling, bad mouthing, ballot stuffing, and there are a few more attacks. I could not remember now.
So we come to the end of the session. On behalf of SRM IST School of Computing, I myself, Eliezer, thank Professor Venkatesan for giving a nice informative sessions on the opportunities on blockchain technology. Thank you so much, sir. You have given a very nice informative session. It will be very useful for the participants. Kavi, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir Venkatesan, sir, thank you very much, sir, for your detailed presentation on the research focus for the participants. I hope it will be very useful for them, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you. So if any other questions they have, then they can mail to me if required. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you. So shall I leave, Dr. Kavishankar?
Yes, sir, you can leave, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Participants, one or two can give you a feedback based on this workshop. The 3 days workshop is come to end. So there is no schedule for the validity function. Just we get a feedback from you, either one or two. and then we close this session with a thanks note. Any one or two, please share your feedback so that it would be helpful for our betterment.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Myself, Priya from Coimbatore Research Scholar.
yes, ma'am.
Actually, I was about to searching these related topics, but it is timely helpful for me actually when when I was searching for something related to this, related to my work. This is the exact one that I have found and which is very helpful and very insightful. And the last 2 day session was awesome. There is no words to explain. Full technical things are explained very clearly, and it is understandable to everyone. Thanks for wonderful such session. I'm waiting for such sessions with some more time. The time limit may be even extended. It won't be boredom.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm very pleased to attend those things which is related to these type of technologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your feedback. Your feedback gives us more confidence and more energy to organize such a workshop in future. Thank you so much, ma'am. Priya, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
So, sir, to add to that, Priya ma'am, actually we are planning to conduct next month a detailed workshop, all related to the implementation aspect. We will be shortly circulating those information also in the group which we have formed right now. You can make use of that facility. Say that will be for 5 days, entirely full of hands-on. So yeah, that will be very useful for you, I think so. And say the pioneers like the Kerala Blockchain Academy will be giving the explanation on those things. So you can make use of those facility which is available. Okay,
I'm
so we'll be sharing those details.
looking forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other participants? If you are willing, you can share your feedback on these 3 days workshop. Okay. We once again thank all the participants, the resource persons from industries and various institutes. Once again, I thank on behalf of the School of Computing SRM IST, Department of Computing Technologies. So the participants, approximately 60 to 70 participants have attended sincerely for the 3 days workshop. Though 250 candidates has registered, but we are happy that around 60 to 70 candidates attended all the sessions. Based on the feedback I'm telling. Once again, we thank so much all the participants and my fellow colleague, Dr. Kavi Singh sir. Sir, if you want to tell some notes, you can share. Kavi sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, I would thank the department and also all the participants who are very much cooperative and in spite of the tight schedule, right? The online session will be very tight actually. So in spite of those things, they have participated in the workshop, and I think they would have acquired quite a lot of knowledge on that. Thanks a lot for that. Thank you all participants.
Okay, thank you all. You please fill your feedback with the correct data, especially the first 4 information: name, designation, institution name, and mail ID. All these 4 at least you give without any spelling mistake, so that this will help you to send you the certificate within a week. The certificate will not be sent instantly. We'll send you separately within a week. Okay, within a week time, we will send you the e-certificate to your mail ID. So you please type the information correctly. Thank you all. Thank you once again. Thank you all. You can leave. After filling this feedback, you can leave. Thank you so much.
Yeah, kindly give your correct name and email ID so that you will get the certificate in that particular name, and that email ID and your designation also. Thank you all.